Welcome to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. Real people doing real deals in real estate and no fake gurus allowed. We bring you the best and the most real estate investors in the space. They'll be showing you the good, the bad, and the ugly of real estate investing. Like, share, subscribe, get notified. It's the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast, and today I have the pleasure of bringing my friend, Mr. Don Costa, with the Flip Talk podcast, which, by the way, I'm a listener to. So thank you so much for being here, Don.
Hey, I appreciate you having me.
Man, it's we've been trying to do this for quite a while now. You had me on your podcast. I would say it was probably more than a year ago.
It's been a bit. Yeah.
It's been a while. And then, I moved offices and, I started adjusting and this and that. But finally, we're back online. And for those of you guys who don't know who Don Costa is, man, this is an OG. Okay. He's been around for a while. He's been around for longer than you may think, because he looks actually young, especially now that he's shaving his head real good there. But man, Donnie's got an incredible story. I'm happy to call him my friend because we actually get to hang out every time we go and we go to these events around the country, and we get to meet at the family reunion and the REI coaches and all these other events that are going around. And me and Don, we always go have a little bit of fun, eat and all that. But the important thing here today, guys, is that number one, you have to go to iTunes and subscribe to his podcast, The Flip Talk. Actually, before the podcast just started, I was telling Don, I was like, man, Don, that podcast with John Martinez, the last one you had, that was awesome. I learned so much on it. So, he's got a vast knowledge on real estate. The people that come on his podcast are great. So please go ahead and subscribe to his podcast. Look him up on YouTube. But with no further ado, man, who is Don, man? Where do you come from? What are your upbringings like? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, the OG mark. I don't know if I like that or if I should take pride in that.
I like the OG, man. You should take pride of that, man. Like, I mentioned your name to a friend of mine when we were doing wholesaling, and I said, hey, this guy Don, man, I think he'll be a great addition to the lineup. And he said, oh yeah. He said, OG, man, OG. So he's the one that named you the OG, not me personally.
All right, fair enough. All right, yeah. So, 18 years in the business, but so. I don't know, how far back I should go. Like most entrepreneurs, I didn't come from money. So I was somebody, that like anybody else who didn't have a family that, was really well off. My family did okay. And I just wanted more. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I searched through different businesses through the years, trying to figure out what was a fit, for me. I've had cell phone stores. I've had, nightclubs. I've had different kinds of businesses through the years. Some of them while I was a real estate investor, and some of them before. But real estate just kind of fit like a glove. Once I fell into it, it was like it was the widget that worked, if that makes sense. And so started real estate investing in 2003, and that was, I think like most people, I thought about it way longer than I should have. I was looking at real estate investing as far back as I remember. I graduated from high school in 91. That dates me. But and I remember looking at properties and talking to people even then. And so it took me a better part of 12 years before I actually got into it. Because I had all the same fears and anxiety. You need money, you need credit. Am I going to make the right decisions? How do I even know how to evaluate a property? We didn't have YouTube University and podcasts, and we had Carlton Sheets and some of the OG gurus back then. So
yeah, those are the real OGs.
Yeah, those are the real OGs.
I get it. Yeah. You're right.
So, yeah. So it took me a minute to fall into it, and the craziest thing is I was getting ready to get married, and I had quit my job in 2002. I have literally not had a job since 2002.
Wow.
So, in one more year, that'll be 20 years. Oh my God, dude! I just said
Crazy.
That since I've had a job, And I went to Las Vegas with some friends. We opened cell phone stores. We opened 4 cell phone stores in Las Vegas, and I spent a year basically trying to commit the suicide. I say that tongue in cheek because I know that's a serious thing, but literally, like we didn't sleep
Wow.
for a year. We had a good time. We were always hanging out. We were drinking. We were partying. And I spent that year running that business, and just realized that the lifestyle in Vegas wasn't going to work for me long term, and so I moved back to uh Fresno and got married. And I remember I was at that crossroad where I told my wife, I'm like, I think I'm just going to go back to school, and get serious about education. At the time I had an associate's degree, and I was like, I'm gonna get serious, maybe get a bachelor's, MBA or something like that. And she's like, no, we're having a family, getting a job.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, no, I'm not getting a job. And so, but I decided I wanted to get that one. I was at that point where I'm married. I don't have kids. The second I have kids, like it's going to change. I need to make something happen. So I decided real estate investing, it had to happen there. And I started interviewing with mortgage companies, and I wanted to learn the financing side. Cause again, I thought you have to have money, right? So I remember interviewing with this guy, and the guy ended up turning out to be a total tool. So the story goes all bad, but it's what got me started. So, and he asked me why I was there. And for some reason I was honest. I was like, I'm really here because I want to flip houses, and I'm just trying to learn the financing side of things. And
Wow.
he leans over his desk and he's like, if you go find properties, I'll put the money up. And he's like, and work something out. And so that was, I think it's a proof that the mind is the most powerful tool we have, because that mindset shift for me was like, okay, now I have money, I can do this. It was like, boom, suddenly it was like, there was no excuses. And I went out and, I found pre-foreclosure lists at the time. In California, you can get them from title companies. Now you can't, but, and I started door knocking, and just found that I was really, really good at, you know, uh, it, talking a seller into me being the one that bought their home if they were going to sell it. And it was game on from that point on in time. I started making some money.
So were you an acquisitions guy at that point for this other person, or
It
how
was
how did that look like?
it was kind of a partnership. Yes and no. I mean, so that I'll tell the story quickly on that one. He said, he said, go find the properties. I'll put up the money, and we'll split
Right.
everything right down the middle. And
Right.
so I was more of a partnership per se, but it ended up being that I was an acquisitions guy, because what happened was I suddenly realized that I was good at this game of acquisitions. And I started locking up properties real quick. And
Right.
he was coming through, he was picking up the properties, um, and he wasn't selling them. So
Keeping them.
what happened is, over a period of time, like I was locking up all these properties, he was buying them, and then he was putting his daughter in one, and the renovation was taking forever on another. Like, I wasn't making any money. And
Right.
so um I went to try to put something in writing with him, and he's like, hey, why, don't you trust me? And that was a whole thing. So finally I got him to commit to putting something in writing. And then still I wasn't getting paid. So I decided, we ended up doing a project, and I ended up taking over the rehab on it, and I got it rehabbed and got it sold. And he turned around and sued me, because the paperwork that we did said that I think that he was supposed to manage projects. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was saying that I violated that. So we ended up in a lawsuit, and here I am, no money, still haven't gotten paid. Worked for probably almost a year with this
Wow.
guy, and now I'm getting sued. And
How were you paying bills at the time? Like, if he wasn't paying you, how were you producing any money?
that's a fantastic question. I'm looking back on it, I'm not exactly sure how I got by. um, you
Yes.
know, I had some of the other kind of side hustle things I was doing and stuff like that to
Right.
kind of make ends meet. My wife had a job. Yeah, my wife at the time had a job, and so I end up in a lawsuit. Well, let me answer the question for you, actually, because as I'm thinking it through, we always remember the good things, and we don't remember the bad things. But
Yeah.
as I'm thinking it through, I started getting wise to the fact that he wasn't going to sell. And so this is a great lesson for anybody listening. It was really heavy competition door knocking back then. And I was really good at talking people into selling to me if they were going to sell. And so I was talking people out of selling to other people. And I
Right.
remember standing in the doorway of a house right after I got the contract, and this woman pulled up, and she was a competitor, and I had stole the house. You know, she was coming to get the contract signed, and I got it. And I walked out and I said, "Look," I said, "I'm obviously way better than you at this game of getting the houses in contract." And I was like, "But you have money." And I was like, "Why don't we just partner?" And she's like, "Okay." So,
Done.
and that's honestly what happened. So, you know, that's how I started making money in this game, while everything else, what that other guy was, you know, doing its thing
Yeah,
was,
he wasn't. I mean, if he
yeah,
would have paid you, I don't think you would have ever considered
I wouldn't have went
trying
anywhere.
to find
Yeah.
another partner.
Right, which is the best thing that ever happened to me, that he didn't pay me. But so long and the short of it is, him and I end up in a lawsuit. I partner up with her, and then half a dozen other people I partner up with, you know, basically that have money. And I'm like, I'll bring deals, you know, and you guys put up the money. And at the time, we were doing a strategy where we were buying sub two.
Yep.
And then they were putting up the money to reinstate the loan, give the homeowner whatever their walkaway was, and then the renovation. And then I would manage the renovation, and then we'd split the profit. That was my strategy.
So you were acquisitions and general contracting at the same time.
I was acquisitions and project management.
Right.
So, and then they handled it. I didn't come up with any money. They handled 100% of the money. So while that's going down, I'm building that up. I'm in the lawsuit with this guy, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I had every extra dollar I had went into attorney's fees. In the end, we settled, and I think he ended up giving me like 140 grand. So I ended
Oh
up walking
wow.
with money. But the long and the short of it is all that adversity. I feel like people who come out of the gate in this business and they hit a home run right out of the gate, like that's poison to me. The people who have
Yeah.
adversity and it takes you 6 months to get your first deal, or you have struggles like mine where like I should have quit 100 times, you can't phase me. Like, you want to threaten a lawsuit to me, it's like, I know it's going to cost you 20 grand just to get to the settlement table with me. You want to invest that time and energy, I'm going to sleep at night. It's not going to worry me
Yeah.
because I've already been through it, you know, a few times. You're going to lose sleep and you're going to stress. So go ahead and sue me.
That one right here.
Yeah, see, it's part of the game, bro.
That's it.
It's
So
the way
I
it
mean,
goes.
you're in this business long enough, right?
Right.
Somebody's gonna try to come get you for something, you know.
Right.
But it is true. I don't lose sleep over those things, and
Right.
I'm just gonna go to battle. And sometimes they don't even know who they're messing with. You know how strong you can come back to some of these people,
Mhm.
and then they start, what I call it, they start crawfishing. You know, they start walking backwards, like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Oh, you didn't mean that,
Right.
really? Okay, so all right, so you went there. That's when you got real good at acquisitions, and I can see why. You're an introvert now that I hear that podcast, right?
Right.
And you were good at fishing information. And by the way, that camera does that every 30 minutes. So you were good fishing information from the sellers, but then you started getting good also at project managing. So now you were handling these rehabs. And what I'm going to assume is eventually you guys put these properties on the market, sold them, and got paid.
Sold them and got paid. Absolutely.
Right.
And
Okay.
and the term good at project management is going to be a tongue in cheek term, because I wasn't good at project management. Let's just, I want to put that out there. I was really good at looking like I was good, but we were in a market in 2003, 4, and 5 where if you took longer on a property and went over budget, the market actually hid those
Helped
flaws
you.
and you made more money.
Yeah, it helped you.
It
So
helped you.
yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I was good. Looking back on it now, I was no. It
Right.
wasn't even close to average. But the market, it's like, oh, we took a month longer, we made 40 grand more. Okay. So
Yeah, great challenge to have, right?
yeah, right.
So okay, so all the way fast forward to, like, when do you go in business on your own? Like, when do you break from those partnerships? And
That's a great question. So no, I was involved in those partnerships all the way up until about 2008, and it wasn't. Let me be clear. Like, I was in business on my own, but what I was doing is I was JVing on the projects with
yeah,
people because they had money, and so and you know, it was just really easy to stick to what I knew, which was sub two structure, and have it bring in an investor to come in with the money and then do a profit split. And it was real easy. It was real quick. The money was always there. All I had to do is pick up a phone and say, I need 15 grand to send to the bank today. And I had it in my hand. It was the wild, wild west before 2008. Money was flowing crazy.
Now, were you getting paid up front for like an acquisition fee or something like that?
No, I wasn't doing any of that. I probably could have, to be honest with you, but I wasn't. But in the meantime, I started a property management company. I started a real estate company. I had a mortgage company. We had 3 offices. I ended up growing to like 40 agents. I was flipping houses. Like I was making money. I thought everything I touched turned to gold. Again, the market was hiding every flaw I had. I was a tool. I was a horrible bottleneck in my organization. I was a bad leader, but the market made me look like I was a genius. And that wasn't until 2008, right? Until 2007, 2008. And the crazy thing is right at the beginning of 2008, January 6th, I think 2008, we opened a restaurant and nightclub. So me and a couple of partners, and I just invested pretty much a lot of capital into that. And the market started crashing basically at the end of 2007. So, going into 2008, I thought that I was untouchable. I was unstoppable. And
you were in the top of the world, man. You were rich. You made a ton of money. Now you're an investor in these other ventures.
Right.
What was the most money you made in 1 month that you can recall, prior to the crash? Like that you were like, man, this is a lot of money, right? Because I've been through that. Your 2008 was my 2017, pretty much.
Right. So, man, we had multiple 6-figure months, back then, and which we do now, as a business.
Yeah.
So, we did really, really well, and it was just so easy. And that's one of my fears right now with what the market's doing, because people are starting to drink the Kool-Aid and they're like, oh, the market's on fire, it's so easy. And yeah, and I'm like, it's easy right now, but you got to protect your downside. And I see too many people not protecting their downside. But yeah, 2008 hit, and it was just I wasn't prepared for it. I was very cash poor, and I had a lot of expenses. And I was like a ship with holes, it was the craziest thing. I couldn't stop the bleeding as fast as I tried. It was like, I was just selling off stuff, hemorrhaging this, hemorrhaging that, trying to stop the bleeding. And the last thing I latched onto is that restaurant nightclub. We kept it open for we kept it open 4 years.
Wow. All the way to 2012?
Just shy of 2012. Yeah.
And how come it didn't work moving forward? Because that was a good, in my opinion, that was a good way to diversify yourself, was to have this other, thing that is completely not related so much to real estate, buying and selling homes, is the food business or the club or whatever. What happened there?
You can't fight City Hall. That's what happened at the end of the day. So, it's Fresno. Fresno as a city is very conservative. They don't have a lot of nightlife entertainment. When they do, they really they try to make it impossible to run your business. Like when we first opened, they wouldn't allow us to open past midnight. Then we got to 2 a.m. They wouldn't allow us to have dancing. It was just the whole thing. And finally we got dancing, but then they tried to take our liquor license away. It was just, it was constant battle. And so by that point, I was over it, I hadn't really made any money, from it, substantial. I had definitely made my money back. And it was wearing, the nightclub lifestyle, I'd sunken all my time into that. I had 2 kids at the time, and it was, it's late nights, so it's a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. We had groups like Sugar Ray, David Gray, Backstreet Boys, Carolina Liars. We had some major names come through. At the time they had kind of run their course as entertainers, but just because we're talking about 2009, 10, 11, but still we had some major names come through our club, and all that stuff was really, really cool. But fighting the city constantly and all the handcuffs they're putting on us, we couldn't sell more alcohol than food. That was one of the restrictions they put on us, so it was impossible to run a business. And I was just exhausted by the time. I was broke. I was beaten down. I had lost everything.
Right.
And when I say lost everything, like my wife calling me crying from the grocery store because the card wouldn't clear and she had a cart full of groceries, going to the gas station with quarters to buy gas at a gallon at a time, going to the grocery store with a calculator all the time. I mean, I was broke, I was beaten, and I just had enough. And so we finally just threw in the towel on the club.
Well, at least you had quarters. My wife called me one time and she said, "Hey, which debit card do I use
Oh, I did that all the time. Yeah.
for gas?" And I was like, "I don't know, use any card, right? Like we should be okay for gas." And she's like, "No, you're overdrawn in all the bank accounts by the thousands, And I was like, "Oh shit. I guess you're not going today to do what you're supposed to be doing. Get back home, right?" So yeah, having more months at the end of your money is never fun, right? But
it's sad. It's sad when you know which cards will let you overdraw and how long you have to get that overdraw fixed, right? When you have that timed.
No, and then you do a $20. You start calculating like, okay, I'm gonna spend $20, but this $20 is gonna cost me 35 more. So in reality, you're paying 55 because of 35, the overdraw fee. So you're like, no, don't spend $20. Go ahead and spend like 100. That way, at least it's 135. It's not,
Right.
So yeah, I've been there, man. I know exactly what that looks like.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that the universe always has a way of pulling us back, humbling you down, and teaching us a lesson. Because I had my lesson as well. Just like you, I thought I was walking on water sometime in 2017, and my ego got bigger than I was, and I wasn't, and I was not plugged in the network like here in Houston, like with a lot of people. So a lot of people didn't know who I was. But internally, when you start making multiple six figures a month, and you own all these properties, next thing you know, you think you're like Donald Trump or something like that, and now people are chasing you. Hey, Don, can I pick your brains? Can I take you to lunch? I was like, well, you don't need to take me to lunch. I'm already fat. But, because that's not my case. Like people started showing up in my warehouse. And I was like, what is going on here? Right. And me and Dennis were looking at Lambos and Ferraris, and we thought we made it. Right. And then boom, Harvey happens. Our business blows up. So similar thing to what happened to you in 2008. So it took you so you quit the business literally from 2008 all the way till when? Like when did you have the courage to get re-engaged back into real estate?
So let me fill in a gap here. So basically we closed the nightclub. The landlord goes for a judgment because we didn't fulfill the lease. I don't have the money to fight him. He ends up with a $690 something thousand judgment in 2011 ish. I think 2010 maybe. Actually, yeah, 2010. So by 2011 we closed nightclub almost a year later. Actually, he gets a judgment beforehand because we're not paying rent anyway. So trying to put the pieces together, but he gets a stipulated judgment. And as long as we stay open, he doesn't enforce it, but it still accumulates interest. And then we close and he goes ahead and enforces it. And so what happens is over a period of the next couple of years, it just accumulates interest and attorney's fees, ends up being almost $1 million.
Wow.
So basically when we close, like I'm looking at that, I'm looking at the fact that I'm broke. I feel like real estate's destroyed me, and I'm just scared to death of everything. I'm trying to get a job. No one's hiring me. I'm either undereducated or overqualified. Nobody's getting jobs back then anyway. And so finally, I have a handful of moments. I always tell the Taco Bell story. I take my family to Taco Bell as one of these moments, and I think I have money on a credit card, and I go in to pay for a $20 meal, and my card won't clear in Taco Bell. And I literally have to collect my family and leave Taco Bell. And my son, while we're leaving, he asked me, Dad, why won't the main guy give us the food? Right. And, I realized those are moments where I realize like I'm failing everybody. And as a man, as an entrepreneur, we think, okay, we got thick skin, like we can take everything. But as a man, that was soul crushing. And I start having these moments, Christmas, my younger son asked for a specific gift and I can't afford to buy it. And I'm thinking he won't remember. He's 4, right? The first thing he asks for when he wakes up is that gift. He runs to the Christmas tree. Every present he opens isn't that gift, and he's like, the next one's going to be this, And I'm having these moments, and finally, I just, I finally surrender. I'm like, I got to do something. What am I good at? And the only thing that came to mind is I'm good at identifying what a deal is. I'm good at putting the pieces together, but I was scared. It's like, is real estate really safe? Is it really something I should be doing? And I remember there was a point, and I'd been sitting in this recliner chair like every day. My wife was going to work. I dropped the kids off at daycare, on the days that I needed to go look for a job, and daycare is family basically when I say that. And then the days I was supposed to be home watching them, I'd stay home and watch them. But every day I just basically sink into this chair. And I was just desperate. I was broke. I was depressed. And I remember one day I opened up my computer and I typed on a Craigslist ad, basically, experienced flipper looking for somebody that has money to partner with, must be close enough to have a cup of coffee. I got 6 phone calls, and this is like the end of 2011, maybe the first couple of months of 2012. I got 6 phone calls, and one of them I ended up meeting for coffee. Great guy, talked a lot. And I didn't know my value, right? I was so scared to get him to commit that I would sit, and we'd had multiple meetings where he'd just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and nothing ever came of it. And I remember one of the last meetings I had with him, we were at Starbucks. I got in a Trinta iced tea, and we were like 2 hours into the conversation. He's, again, he's telling me how great he is and everything. And I had to pee so bad, and I wasn't going to get up and leave that conversation. And I get a text from my wife, and I look at the text, and she's like, our water's off. There's a notice on the door, our water's off. And I'm like, man, I can go fix this problem. I almost dropped an F-bomb. I'm like,
you can. It's all good. This is explicit language here, so we're good.
Yeah. But I was like, I can go fix this problem now, or I can sit and close this guy. And that was kind of like the fire. Like for me, I was like, I'm not leaving this until this guy commits to backing me on a deal. And even then, I don't know why I felt like I had to have money, because you don't have to have money to do this business. But I felt like I had to have it. And he committed to backing me, and I went home because I'd flipped houses before I knew how to turn water on. So I did turn my water on, and then I scraped up the money to pay the bill the next week. But the crazy thing is like I suddenly I had power again. I had wind beneath my wings, right? I went out and I started talking to agents and other wholesalers, and I was like, I got $2 million behind me, and I'm the shit, and I'm gonna do this. And that was right at the beginning of 2012. In May, we locked up our first deal. It came through an agent. It was it was a pocket listing. In June, we closed on it. I started rehabbing it. And in September, we sold it. It had fallen out of escrow a couple times, long story. But we ended up making 20 grand. I had to split it with them. It was a JV deal. I made 10 grand. It was gone before I had it in my hand, but I was back in business. It was proof of concept.
Awesome story, bro. Yeah. Man, I can relate in so many ways to you, Don. And I know you and I talk about this all the time. But I got my gas turned off one time. But how do you turn your gas on? I was like, So we had to take these cold showers, man. And here I am on a freaking $1 million home, because that's another thing. I lived in this house, and my gas is getting turned off, and my wife is like, Ricardo, we got the gas turned off, and I was like, shit, man, and so I go back and I just pull because they usually put a tag on your door. Like, it's like red, but it's this red that, anybody from 500 miles away can see it. I'm just pulling the tag off so they wouldn't see it in my house, right? It's like, what the hell, how is this guy getting his gas turned off? But yeah, you find out that, sometimes, unfortunately or fortunately, because I wanted to get rid of my property, the house I lived in, for a while, and my wife was having this I guess fear to change,
emotional attachment,
emotional attachment, like, and she's we built it. Our children were grown there, but I was actually sick and tired of it already. Like, I wanted to move on from it for a while. Like, I knew that I wasn't making any progress in that particular house. And it took me almost a year to convince her. And I would do anything I could just to make the payments. Oh, I fell behind on mortgages, I don't know how many times. And I wasn't worried about it at all, because I knew how to get out of it. I was like, well, if they come foreclose on this thing, I know exactly what I need to do, and I can drag this thing for another year or so. But eventually it was more like, okay, I got to get rid of it. I got to convince her to move out. once I show her one time the reinstatement on it, I said, look, I gotta pay like $55,000 to reinstate this thing. I do have the money, but why don't we just sell this thing, owner finance it out? I'll cover the reinstatement. We'll move out of it, and we just start fresh somewhere else, with less liabilities, less, putting less money out. And she's like, okay, I get it. So she had to feel that pressure on all that money that I had to produce to be. And that's another funny thing, Don, that year, actually, that was the year prior to that, I made $1 million and I was broke.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Like, you make $1 million, like, because before we made any money, right? Maybe you and I can relate to this, but when I was making, I don't know, $20,000 a year, when I was in the military or whatnot, you would think, oh man, if I can make 100,000, right? My life will be so much easier. And then you start making 100,000, and then you start living like $100,000 guy, and then you start making 200-300, and then you start living like, well, I made $1 million, man, and I didn't have money for gas. That it was insane, because my life, like your ship with the holes, man, my ship was sunk already. I was just the captain. I kept my mouth off, breathing a little bit. So yeah, and thank you so much for opening like the way you're doing, Don, because a lot of these people that are in our space, they've gone through what you and I have gone through, but they don't talk about it. They're not willing to share their struggles, how they got to where they are today, because they have to protect this image of success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think stories like yours are the ones that our listeners need to pay attention to, because yes, things start going very well. You can start making good money. Your life changes. And then your head gets bigger. Your ego gets bigger. You forget about what's really important. Maybe the business plan you have in place is not really bulletproof. And it's kind of like a bubble. And then when something happens, it blows up on your face, and you don't even know it. Like it happened to me as well. My business blew up on my face. And it actually took me almost a year to realize that I was actually going broke. And I did have money, but I didn't have guidance on how to approach a situation like the one I was on. I wish I would have been in masterminds like the ones we become parts of today, because they would have told me right away, you need to start making payments, you need to negotiate with your lenders, you need to do this. The pride of, oh, I committed to these loans, I'm going to continue to pay, is what nearly broke me.
Right.
But anyways, this is not about me, it's about you. So you go through all of these things, you get re-engaged. This guy says, I'm going to back you up. You guys go pull the first deal together again, or with your new partner or JV partner, which is, by the way, guys, if you guys are listening to this, look at what Don has done throughout his career in the real estate business. And also as an entrepreneur, when you were doing restaurants, he's always JV with other people, which it's the power of leverage, right?
It's leverage.
It is leverage. And you are very good at leveraging, because, maybe, I don't know what it looks like today, and we'll get that in a minute, but he has been able to leverage other people, even when his back was against the wall. When you sat down at that Starbucks or that coffee shop or whatnot, and you went for countless meetings, you were just trying to leverage a person that was financially in position to back you up, and until you close the deal. And then you made your first $10,000, no problems. You couldn't see a penny, because you probably owe so much money to everybody and their mama that money came in and left. But now you have proof of concept, and you're like, all right, I'm back on the game. I'm like, like you, Don, I quit real estate. I would say it was in between 2010 and about 2012, because I got my freaking ass whooped by contractors, and I hated it. Like, I started not liking it. Like, man, these people are just taking advantage of me. So you can go through things like that, but then eventually something happens that reels you back in, and you're like, well, wait a minute, let me look at the positives. I'm good at putting deals together. I'm okay at managing projects and making projects pull through. I just need to go find me some financial backing.
Right.
And once I find that guy, now I just gotta go find this is the beautiful thing about what we do is you find money, you find the deal, everything happens in between.
Everything happens
So
between, yeah. With
you're at
wholesaling, you have to find the money. I mean, that's, you just find the buyers. So, but yeah, that was JV made sense for me because I wasn't in a position the first time, in my business, I did it because I didn't have any money to make payments or anything. And it just made sense to get comfortable and stay there. The second time I did it to start because I didn't have money to make payments and I didn't want to have that obligation. I didn't want to have to come up with a down payment. And once I got momentum, I found rate and term lenders. So, but ultimately, yeah, that's how I did it.
how long did it take you from when you lost everything to kind of like rebuild yourself, right? Like not only financially, but mentally, your credit, because now you said you had judgments and this and
Yeah.
that. How was that process like? Like what because that was a huge rebuilding process for you.
Well, the judgments are gone. I settled the $1 million judgment out, and took care of pretty much everything else. I didn't focus on my credit for a long time. Credit to me wasn't a priority just because I was paying for everything cash anyway.
Yeah.
At that point in time. But as far as myself, it's still a journey. I'm always working on myself, every single day. I think it's naive to think that you don't. As we always try to go to another level or do something else, that you still have that mindset thing creep in on you, and tell you that you're not worthy of that next step. So it's always a journey. Business wise, though, we got pretty good momentum, you know, really, really quick. You know, with the business, I did one, and then I did two, and then I did one, then I did three. By June of 2013, I had almost $400,000 in the bank.
Oh
Um,
wow.
Granted, I didn't take all that home, obviously.
Yeah, but that you had now a safety net. You had capital money to use. You weren't worried about the water bill anymore.
Right,
Your wife could go actually buy groceries, not thinking about how much money can I spend or not spend.
right.
Right. So it gives you a whole different mindset frame for operating within your business.
100%. It just changed. Yeah. You go from that survival mentality of staring at every little rock in front of you, trying to solve the little tiny problems in your day, to looking at the big boulder that you can push over to solve everything. And that was the change. And honestly, you should do that before the handcuffs cuffs come off. You should do it. That's what you should always be looking at. But in survival mode, we can't. It's an emotional deficit. We can't. We look at all the, my lights gonna be turned off. Am I gonna lose my home? How do I feed my kids? Instead of the big problems. So as I got that first deal and I got that 10 grand and it started to take the chains off a little bit, and then I was able to focus on how do I really get momentum at that point.
Man, so let me ask you a question. When did you actually start doing self-development on a regular basis that you can tie it on a time frame from when you were going through all the struggles and you started having some momentum? I'm trying to picture when Don said, I'm gonna pick up a book and read about, I don't know, how to meditate or how to be a better salesperson, or when did that happen? Because I
When
know
I
you do it.
when I decided to get back into the business, I realized that the reason why I failed the first time was not real estate, it was me.
Hmm.
And my ego and my inability to be a good leader, and my me being a bottleneck and having to have control, and all the things that we all do as entrepreneurs that basically poison our business. And I made a decision that I was not going to be that same person, and so it started immediately.
Wow. And
Yeah,
this is what you think is 2012 around.
2012. Yeah.
Was that before the meeting with your JV partner at the time, or after?
Well, I would say probably during, more after, June 2012, we locked up that we closed in that first deal. And so that's June 2012 is when I was officially back in business, I guess. But it was in that ballpark. I'd say right around that first deal, is where that, I was like, I'm going to do this right, but I'm going to do it different. And that means I have to be a different person.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I've been doing self development for the most of my life, right?
Right.
So I've always been reading books and things like that. And one thing I never quit doing was growing myself, even when I was going through struggles, right? And I think that's what allowed me to push through my setbacks when I was losing everything pretty much. And looking back, and that's why I ask you that question. Is like, hey, okay, when do you start actually actively working on yourself? Because I think that if you would have started sometime in 2006 or 2007, you would have pushed through 2008, 9, and 10 so fast.
Oh no, yeah. There's a lot of reasons why 2008 should have never happened to me. And had I done 1,000 things differently, or even one little thing differently as a person, I would have not had the issues. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I wouldn't change it for anything. The greatest thing that ever happened to me was losing everything. It made me a better person. It made me a better father. It made me a better business person. And yeah, I just, it gave me a good story. I mean, honestly, I stand on stage and tell my story and people cry. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because it's like, wow, so many people are having the same struggle and they think they're going through it alone. And now I have the ability to share my story and say, hey, not only are you not alone, but you can come back from it.
Yep.
And that means a lot to me. It's a legacy thing, and it's really, really cool. And so I wouldn't change it at all.
Me neither. Me neither. I mean, I think we all embrace our story a certain way.
Mhm.
I joke about it now. Like not. I mean, not having money for gas or for paying your water bill or your light bill or your mortgage or your vehicle getting repoed. And I remember taking the chairs, my kids' chairs, the baby seats out of the truck. That way, if they took the truck, I didn't have to go get the seats.
Right.
And then every time I go back and put them back on and off. But
Right.
but for those of you that are listening or watching this, guys, one of the reasons why Don opens up the way he is, and I do it as well, is so you guys don't have to go through that. Okay,
Right.
so it's very painful. Okay, it can bring you down to your knees, and it will actually bring you down to your knees, and it will make you cry, and maybe some people around you cry as well. So the point is, guys, do self-development right now. Work on yourself before you can work on your business. And you will avoid a lot of the mistakes that both Don and I have made, or not mistakes necessarily, but a lot of the journeys that we had to go through to kind of like find ourselves back into business. And now you're doing bigger things. So tell me now, you went there, you kind of like got back on your feet. You had 400K in your bank account, and now you're back. Now, like, okay, Don is back. How is that journey until today? Like, what does your business look like? How do you come up with a podcast? How is that new Don, the post Don? Like, how do you get there?
Yeah. Uh, that's a fantastic question. Love your camera, bro.
Yeah, it's freaking, it's driving me insane. I actually got a new black magic coming, so hopefully I won't have to deal with that anymore. So
yeah. They're hit me with the question one more time.
Yeah. So how is the new Don? Like, you had the 400K in the bank at some point. You're like, okay, I'm back. How do you start growing from there to where you open up a podcast? You started talking,
Okay, perfect. The camera threw me off there for a second, but
I know.
Okay,
so yeah, too, so
yeah. The one thing that I have learned this time is don't inhale. Don't take it all in. When you have money in the bank, does not mean that you're the greatest things in sliced bread and you go out to Vegas and buy a Lamborghini, right?
Right.
I'm very conservative right now. I drive a 2018 Chevy pickup. I paid for it. I'm very happy with it. So I'm a different person in that sense of the word. When it comes to growing my business, I've learned to make sure that my team has permission to make mistakes.
Yep.
They have permission to be smarter than me. They have permission to make decisions without me. In fact, when I hire people, I tell them that if you have to count on me for anything, then you're failing in your job.
Right.
Okay. So that was an important dynamic that I wasn't that kind of leader beforehand. When it comes to systems and processes and how I run my business, I don't listen to what anybody tells me my business should be. I look at how I want my business to be, and I'm very purposeful about that. I live outside the box. So if somebody tells me I have to put money down on a property and and that kind of thing when I'm borrowing money, then I go against that and I say, okay, I'm going to borrow 100%, and I look at my business that way. When I have suck points in my business where I'm miserable, I look at what can I do to solve this so I never have a suck point again in
Right.
this situation. We create systems and processes. So that's a big change. And then as far as my podcast goes, um, that came from me being bored because I was suddenly looking up and realizing I'm not seeing any of the houses. I don't even know where they're at.
Wow.
And I was like, so what do I do? Well, the last time around, I started too many businesses that weren't part of my core competency. So this time I was like, well, what can I do that's going to keep me in my lane? And so the podcast actually started as a hobby. It was my opportunity to talk to really smart people smarter than me, and keep me in my lane. And it's turned into something really, really cool over the last 4 years. But initially, it was more just so I wasn't bored.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started a hobby that turned into a big part of your business now.
It's turned into a whole other business. Yeah. It's
Right.
opened doors to so many relationships, opportunities. One of the reasons why we know each other.
Yep.
It's created a name for me in the industry. And it makes me money now, but that was never the intent when I started it. My intent when I started it was just to not get reckless as an entrepreneur and go do something else.
Good. So what does your main business in the real estate side look like today? What are you primarily focusing on?
Right now, today in 2021, our primary focus is wholesale. We are generally rehabbers. We're usually really heavy rehab and some wholesale. But in 2021, we're actually really, really heavy wholesale and some rehab. And part of the reason is I'm conservative. I don't believe what's going on in the market's going to last.
Mm-mm.
I could be wrong, but I'd rather be wrong about that than betting everything on it and then being wrong about it lasting, if that makes sense. So we're cherry picking rehabs. We're getting stupid numbers on wholesales anyway. And so we're just doubling down on that. So I have everything in place to add value when it's time to add value again. And again, we're cherry picking the right opportunities to add value to. And I'm making more, I would say more money right now, profitability wise, doing just a little bit less than I have been for a while. So I'm very happy with it.
I love it, man. So are you guys virtually wholesaling, or you're wholesaling in your neighborhood? What is how does that look like?
We do everything over the phone. We're in California, Oregon, and Tennessee.
Oregon and Tennessee, huh?
Mm-hmm. And I'm opening at least 2 more markets in the next 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and the flipping is just in California, right?
The flipping is in California. The rehabbing is within an hour and a half south, basically radius, hour and a half radius. So hour and a half south, hour and a half north, east, west, so on and so forth. We'll flip. We used to go 3 hours and flip, but we've really tightened that up in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I was the same way. I used to be a big flipper, and that's what got me in troubles. And then, now that I'm wholesaling virtually just like you are, I really don't care for flips. I don't even want to go see them. I have one right now, and it's because I picked up a house, owner financed it to us, and we're rehabbing it, but I don't even enjoy it anymore. I don't care for the backsplash, that kind of deal. And I don't think I'll do more flips. Like once I'm done with this one, I'd rather wholesale it. I just rather stack up on the money, and I agree with you. I think the market is going to correct. I don't know when. We are seeing a lot of forbearances right now that are to me, they're cooking, they're brewing right now, and they're going to start blowing up at some points, either this year or next year. I don't think that the banks will do what they did in 2008, which is foreclose on everything. I think they're smarter now, and they're going to work out deals with the sellers and put the balloon on the back end and maybe spread around whatever they owe in 30 years, something. But we're getting a lot of indications that I'm actually looking for my own house, because I know it's out there. Yeah. So I was like, man, you know what? I want to move to Florida, and I'm like, I'm just going to start finding my property in Florida because somebody's in troubles, and that's going to be my next house. So that's what I'll probably buy. But flipping, I'm not too keen on doing, especially when you can get leads at a scale, right? Like you do too. You get more contracts that you can actually flip, or you could be flipping them. Maybe I'm wrong, but whether you want to do it or not, that's a whole different story. I don't want to do it. I just want to, put as much money away as possible as I can and move forward that way. And the flippers, they need to continue because that they fuel our business as well, right? So we sell to flippers and landlords and all that. So what is next for Don, man? What do you see yourself moving forward? Not only in the real estate business, but maybe as an entrepreneur, because you are a serial entrepreneur. Most of your things is real estate, but where do you see yourself moving forward, Don?
I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm going to stay in the real estate space for the most part, though. So we're getting into larger projects as an avenue. We're going into new markets here because my team I have a phenomenal team, and I'm gonna, I'm in the education space, so I'm doing more coaching, and I have a mastermind community and that kind of thing. So, and that's really where my focus now is what how big of an impact can I make, in other people's businesses, other people's lives.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Don, thank you so much for being here today, brother. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you opening up and sharing your story with our audience. Guys, if you are, if you're here thinking about whether this is for you or not, pay attention to Don's story, right? Don't let that intimidate you. Learn from our mistakes. Do a lot of self-improvement. And I want to extend to you guys an invitation to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Event and Mastermind, April 30th, May 1st, May 2nd in Houston, Texas. I'm not sure if Don is coming yet. He's checking his schedule, but if he will, you'll get to see him. If not, I'm pretty sure he'll come on the next one around. But other than that, make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Go to the Flip Talk podcast. Give him a 5-star review. He's got a badass podcast. I'm one of his listeners. I'm always pumping him out. I love the content that you guys produced on, and congratulations on your podcast and your community. I look up to you all the time, man. And if you're listening to this podcast, guys, you guys want to make sure you connect with Don. Okay. So other than that, thank you so much, Don. I appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, man. I can't wait to see you again.
All right, man. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.